is Gabriela on the scene today with Talk Network Radio. We have a real treat for you just around the corner, and that is Empowered Living with Jeff Byrd. Jeff is the owner of Jeffrey Byrd Coaching, and he will be coming to you weekly to teach you more about empowered living. Now, let's join Jeff already in the studio.
Hello and welcome. This is Jeff Byrd with Jeffrey Byrd Coaching, and this is Empowered Living. Now, if you were with us last time, you remember that we are in the middle of a two-part series with our special guest, Lauren Hope. Welcome back, Lauren.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, excellent to be with you. So if you missed the last episode, Lauren shared her story from her journey as a local TV reporter, very well known and well respected, through depression to a suicide attempt, and back up to a renewed sense of purpose and calling on her life to make a difference in other lives. And that's what she is passionately doing now. And what we're going to do this time is last week, Lauren told her story. And if you have not heard that, it is powerful, it is moving, and there is somebody you know, if it's not you yourself, which it may be, there's somebody you know who can identify and who needs to hear that story. So I highly encourage you, please go back and take a listen to that story, but don't do it before you listen to the rest of this episode, because what's going to happen this time is she told her story last time. This time, she is a peer recovery specialist, and she is going to share how those steps in her story can be reproduced in any story to help people get from what we described last time is feeling like you're sitting alone in a dark room, no light coming from a door, a window, just being all alone in the dark and not knowing how to get out. So she's going to describe that to us today. So welcome back, Lauren, and the floor is yours, and we can't wait to hear how you help people now reproduce the steps that you took to get back to wholeness and recovery.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeff. You know, recovery is such a big word. I do love that we're starting to use the word recovery, not just for addiction, but also for mental health, because a mental health crisis can really wreak havoc on your life. So I've been in recovery for 2 years, which means I've been active in treatment. I've been able to work and function and things like that. Everyone's pathway to recovery is different. And I say that to mean that, you know, the thing that works for me may not work for you. So here is what has worked for me. My recovery is threefold. I do take an antidepressant daily. I pray daily. I'm connected to a local church, so my spirituality is a big part of my recovery and therapy. And this is why it works that way for me. I described in the previous show that depression feels like walking around with a rain cloud over your head, and it taints everything that you see and everything that you feel. The antidepressant pushed the rain cloud away, but it didn't give me a burning to live, a desire to get moving. It just removed the rain cloud. It was God's love, what he said about me in the word, the things that I learned about what he does for his children. That's what gave me the fire in my life, the burning to want to rebuild, and the belief that I could rebuild. One of my favorite scriptures is Jeremiah 31:4. I will rebuild you and you will dance again. And I love to dance, y'all. Let me just say that. So, God can make new all of our brokenness. But I also want to say this. There's also a scripture that says faith without works is dead. We're in a relationship with God, right? Christ makes it possible for us to have a relationship. So that means I need to be an active part of that. And so my works is taking that antidepressant every single day, putting myself out there as a speaker, being active and honest in therapy. And because I am playing an active role in my recovery, I can feel God blessing me through that. Now, for a big part of mental health wellness is acceptance. It's hard for a lot of people if they are diagnosed with depression or bipolar disorder or schizophrenia. There's such a stigma around mental illness that acceptance is so hard for so many people. So for me, the first thing was acceptance. And you know what helped me accept it was learning about my diagnosis. I went to my doctor and I asked, what does depression look like? This is what I'm experiencing, being very honest about what I was experiencing. Listening to other people's stories. There are so many communities out there, people living and thriving with a mental illness. There's this one community called This Is My Brave. They're a nonprofit who does shows around the country with people who have mental illness. And it shows these people in front of a live studio audience, very bravely speaking their truth. And these people standing in their truth made me feel like, well, gosh, I'm not alone in this. They're living through this. I can live through this. Interestingly enough, in the psych ward in group therapy, hearing those other people live through their experiences inspired me. I was in the psych ward with an ER nurse, with a mom, with an account executive. I was like, wow, like this affects so many people. The stat says that 1 in 4 people will experience a mental health experience or crisis in a lifetime. 1 in 4. So that normalized it for me. And once that happened, I was able to accept treatment better. I wanted to be my own best advocate. I was more honest in therapy, working through some of the triggers that led to my depressive episode. Also connecting to a community of people that can help you through it. The National Alliance on Mental Illness has peer-run groups, people with lived experience, where you can go and talk to these people about your experiences. Like, you know, when I have an anxiety attack, it looks like this. And then someone can say, oh, well, sometimes this works for me. Or have you tried this? I've learned coping mechanisms through NAMI. They also have classes called peer-to-peer and family-to-family. Family-to-family is actually for loved ones who have somebody who's living with a mental illness and maybe they don't understand. So they can go to that class and get their loved one's perspective, which can sometimes be lost if you're in a mental health crisis. You know, you're only seeing my loved one is acting out, or they're not being the same, or they're participating in destructive behavior. NAMI shows you where they're coming from. And then during peer-to-peer, I had other people with a lived experience of mental illness teaching me how to live with my mental illness, the power of having a mental health advance directive, how to get the best out of therapy, understanding your medication, things I would have never thought about had I not gone to NAMI. I've now been nominated to the Virginia chapter board for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, which I'm extremely proud of. And I now do trainings called Talk Saves Lives. I think everyone needs to know about suicide prevention. They need to know the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, just like we know CPR. That's 1-800-273-TALK. I connect in those trainings, just being as knowledgeable as I can about my mental health struggle. And the biggest thing is that so many people who are struggling with mental illness suffer in silence. They don't feel like anybody understands. They're scared or they're worried about the repercussions. The biggest thing that I want anyone to take from this is please speak up. Speak up if you are struggling. To your mother, your father, a friend, a trusted counselor. You do not have to go through this alone. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay. It's okay to take a step back and assess your mental health. And then I want people in the community, if they see something, to say something. If your friend has a major mood swing, or they're having they're preoccupied with thoughts of death, if their eating has changed, if they're sleeping all the time, if they're isolating themselves, if they're giving away their worldly possessions, these are some of the red flags that somebody could be making a suicidal plan, or they have suicidal ideation. Sometimes people say, oh, that's not my problem. Well, somebody's going to fix it. Don't worry about it. No. If you see something, say something. Speaking up is a big way we save lives. One of the things that AFSP says is to be the voice, right? Be that voice for your fellow man. Spiritually, I know that God didn't put us on this earth to be alone. He wants us to be there for our fellow man. And this one scripture in Proverbs says, iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. A part of that is also speaking up, being there. So that is the biggest thing I want people to know, is to speak up if they're struggling.
And thank you for those warning signs too. You know, I told you before the show as we were chatting that I had asked a group that I was speaking to recently how many of them had seen somebody that looked like they were doing okay, and then within the next month of seeing them found out they had committed suicide. And about 60% of the room raised their hand. So those warning signs again. And just the fact that for so many people, I still haven't gotten past this one, there's so many people who feel that there is just nobody who's going to understand and cares. And I just want to stress the point, because I've been there in my life in various ways, not the same one that we're talking about, but in different ways. And it's just like, there's just nobody I know to talk to. You do try to talk to somebody and they don't get it. But even if that's your case, if you are somebody you know, don't know who to talk to and don't feel like that there's anyone who understands and you are just alone in that dark, there are people who have been there, who get it, who have been through it. And now you're 4 years down the road, I think, right, of taking next appropriate steps. And you listed a lot of steps that you've taken. You've made phenomenal progress, but it all started with that one next appropriate step, that time that you felt God saying to you, I need you to get up. And you took that one step, and that one step led to all these other steps. And just to say, I often talk about the law of Mount Everest, and nobody takes 3 hops and gets to the top of Mount Everest. It's one step after another step after another step after another step. So I just want to encourage the folks that are listening to do exactly what you said and to reach out. If you don't know who to talk to, don't have anybody you feel you can trust, there are people that you can trust who get it and that's their life's purpose, is to help you and to get you to that next step. All you have to do is take that one step, and that creates momentum that can give you the encouragement to lead to the next step. So, Lauren, this has been fantastic. And is there anything else you'd like to say to that person who's just sitting there and maybe listening to this and wondering, should I call? What do I do now? Is there what would you say to them if you were just right there with them?
The first thing that comes to my mind is you are worth it. Your life is worth it. You are worth fighting for. There is beauty after ashes. I know that. I am an amazing testament to that. So if you feel yourself in a dark place, hopeless, I want you to know that you're worth it. You're worth a second chance. You're worth getting out of the bed. You're worth telling somebody, I'm hurting, I'm struggling. Because on the other side of that, right, the other side of taking that step, you open the door for healing. You open the door for reconciliation. You open the door for recovery. I want you to know that you are absolutely, positively worth it.
Jeff will be back shortly to wrap up today's message. This is Gabriela, still on the scene today with Talk Network Radio. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Empowered Living with Jeff Byrd. If you've missed any part of today's message, you can hear it again online, as well as the entire archive of Empowered Living at www.talknetworkradio.com or search keyword #Empowered Living. We would like to acknowledge our music partners, Sound Ideas for Corporate to the Max, and Kevin MacLeod for Airport Lounge. Any scriptures read during this broadcast are from the New American Standard Version of the Holy Bible. If you would like to learn more about Jeffrey Byrd Coaching, visit www.jeffbyrdcoaching.com. That is JEFFBYRD coaching.com. Do a Facebook search for @CoachingRocks or drop Jeff a line at jeff@jeffbyrdcoaching.com. Again, JEFFBYRD coaching.com. Let Jeff's Coaching Rocks be the building blocks of your empowered success. Now, let's go back to Jeff for the rest of today's message.
And then the other thing, too, that you mentioned how important your church community is. I know people who have been deeply benefited by their church communities. I also know other people who have been wounded by church communities. So it's not the type of community so much, I think, is the type of people in the community. So and that's been another big part of your process. I know, first of all, you had to decide you were going to get up and start moving and reach out, but then you also had to get the right people around. What are the qualities that people who are moving in the right direction need in the people around them? Because I think so often, they say that we have the success rate of the average of our 5 closest friends. And, for a lot of people who may be in a bad situation, their 5 closest friends don't really have anything to offer. So what type of people do we need to look for to have in that circle, as we begin to journey forward?
That's a really good question. I've been so moved by the woman at the well. So I always think about myself and my joy